Hello, my name is Owen Sidhu. I'm a sophomore at Morrison High School and a first-year life design student. I joined life design not because I wanted to challenge myself or do work I was motivated by, but because I was basically forced into it. Life design is mandatory for STEM requirements, and I had no choice. I wasn't happy about it. I knew myself. I was lazy. I didn't like creating things, and I definitely didn't have some big idea I was starting to create. So on the first day of class, I sat down and made a decision. I was going to do the bare minimum and get through it. And for a while, that's exactly what I did. Let me be specific about what doing the bare minimum actually looked like for me, because I think it's important to be honest about it. I wasn't struggling. I wasn't overwhelmed. I wasn't dealing with something that was making school hard. I was just lazy. My entire strategy for this class at the beginning of the year was simple. Figure out exactly what I need to do to get an A. Do that and nothing more. Not a single extra minute and not a single extra thought. I treat effort like it was something to be conserved, as if spending too much of it on something I didn't choose would be a waste. And the thing is, that strategy works. You can absolutely get through school doing the minimum. A lot of people do. I had done it plenty of times before. You learn what the teacher wants, you give them that, you move on. But here's what I didn't expect. It stopped feeling okay. Not because the teacher told me to care more, but because my grade wasn't suffering. It was something other than that. I just started noticing that I wasn't enjoying any of it. I was going through discussions and getting nothing back. And at some point, I had to ask myself a concerning question. If I'm going to spend a whole year in this class, either way, why am I choosing to spend it doing nothing fulfilling? That question didn't have an easy answer, but it was the first real thought I had all year about what I actually wanted from this class. And that, looking back, was the beginning of everything changing. If you had asked me in September what my project was going to be, I would have given you the most vague, uncommitted answer possible. I didn't know and I didn't care. I told myself I'll figure it out later, but later kept getting pushed back. Weeks went by and I was watching other people get excited to start their projects while I was still sitting there, generally unbothered. Looking back, I was actively avoiding the discomfort of knowing that I wasn't going to be successful in this class. Well, I told myself I was unbothered, but the truth is, doing absolutely nothing while everyone around you is actively working is a really weird kind of exhaustion. You sit there, pretending to look occupied, staring at a blank Google Doc, or refreshing a page that doesn't need to be refreshed. I would listen to my classmates talk about the roadblocks they were hitting or the creative game design they were sketching out, and I realized they were actually engaged. They had something to care about, and I was just sitting in the room, doing nothing. I realized that the mental energy I was spending trying to justify my laziness to myself was actually taking up more effort than picking up a project and trying. Then something happened. I stumbled into web development, not because it was so cool, but because it was difficult to learn. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, three things that have never touched my mind in my life. My first thought, this looks impossible. My second thought, this also looks impossible. I opened a tutorial and stared at my screen, full of code that looked like a foreign language. I tried to make a simple web page and it broke immediately. I don't know why. I didn't even know what questions to ask. This was a completely different feeling from being lazy. This was something harder. This was me actually trying and still failing. And that is a much more different place to be. There are moments when I genuinely thought, I'm not built for this. I almost convinced myself to drop the whole thing and go back to doing something effortlessly, because at least doing nothing felt easier. Failing at something you're trying at doesn't feel convincing at all. But I kept going, not because I suddenly had some burst of inspiration, but because something about the challenge started to feel different from everything else I'd done that year. For the first time, I was working on something where I had no idea if I'd actually be able to succeed, and weirdly, that started to matter to me. Slowly, things started to click, and once I understood that, I had a direction. I decided to build a procrastination calculator using real student data. I built a tool that could calculate the likelihood of procrastination across different subjects. I had to learn how to write functions in JavaScript and how to take inputs from a user, run logic on them, and output a real result. When I finally got something to work, and when I ran it and the output actually made sense, I sat there for a second and didn't know what to feel. It wasn't like I had built something perfect. There were still things I didn't fully understand and still things that weren't amazing, but I built something that worked, and I built it myself from scratch, starting from zero. And that meant something to me, even though what I created wasn't perfect and wasn't amazing compared to other creations. I was still proud of myself for creating something that worked the way I intended. What I actually learned this year has nothing to do with coding. I learned the version of me that doesn't care isn't actually more comfortable than the version of me that tries and struggles. It just feels safer because you never have to find out what you're capable of. Laziness isn't normal, it's a way of protecting yourself from the possibility that you might try your hardest and still fall short. What changed for me this year is that I stopped protecting myself from that. I let myself be bad at something. I let myself not understand things. I let myself be the person in the room who had no idea what they were doing, and I kept trying anyways. And here's the thing about challenging yourself. Nobody tells you how dreading it actually is. It's not always linear. It's just doing the same thing again, even when doing it the first 4 times got you nowhere. It's closing your Chromebook confused, leaving class, and then coming back the next day and trying again. That's it. That's the whole secret. There's nothing inspirational about it in the moment. It only looks like growth when you zoom out and see how far back you started. I used to think that people who were good at hard things were just built differently, that they had some natural tolerance for frustration that I didn't have. This year taught me that that's not true. The difference isn't talent, it isn't even intelligence. It's just whether you're willing to stay uncomfortable long enough for things to start making sense. And that's a choice. For the first time this year, I made that choice over and over again, and even when I didn't want to. So I'm not just gonna stand here and tell you that I became a totally different person, or that now I love every assignment and wake up excited to work. That would be a lie. And this class deserves more honesty than that. But I will tell you this. I now know that I'm capable of doing hard things, not because I'm naturally talented at them, but because I proved myself that I can stay in the discomfort long enough to get through it. That's something nobody can take away from me, and it'll matter long after I've forgotten most of the work I've done this school year. I came into life design expecting to do nothing. I'm leaving it having built something real, and more importantly, having learned something real about myself. I hope my experiences throughout this year will translate to my future studies and new experiences I encounter. That honestly was not the plan, but it was one of the most beneficial experiences that happened to me this year.